Hey y'all, welcome to Conversations with Pela. I am Pela, and today we are going to just run forward. We're just going to get started and get going. Um, I have the option to not sponsor a show, to not have a sponsor, and to just I'm opting to not today, mostly because I'm tongue tied. That's really what it is, and then I'll make it up later. That's how we'll do it. Here's the thing. Yesterday, I went back and you ever have those moments where you feel like there's an incredible amount of clarity and you understand things and you're running down the road and it all makes sense. It all makes sense. Um, Yesterday, I had a day where all of my thoughts connected together, but they didn't connect together in a way that was 100% coherent to anybody who was listening to me, which was mostly just me when I went back to QC my own work. Um, when I listened, I understood what I was trying to say, but I realized how disjointed it was, how I put the facts together. But also, along with that, we're not going to have another just disjointed day. Here's what I'm going to say. Yesterday, I was starting to understand, like it was starting to click in my mind what is happening with this game that Rock Nation is playing, even though I wasn't really talking about Rock Nation. I was talking about Charlemagne the God. There's been so much conversation around Charlemagne and academics talking together, and DJ Academics accusing Charlemagne of having Rock Nation money, and because of that, really accentuating the talk points. Well, it got around to a conversation that happened on another radio station. It used to be Hot 97. And from what I can, there's a lot of things that I could look up. But I believe Hot 97 was out of Atlanta, whereas Charlemagne is coming up out of New York, right? And these are all stations that are widely syndicated across the United States. Maybe not so heavy here in the West and on the West Coast, but even though they're radio stations, they've crossed over into an entirely different world where, uh, I, honestly, honestly, I don't understand why other radio stations don't follow suit, where you have a show that is both live cast and on the radio, because people don't always have the same listening station. I'm not super obsessed with radio. I just happen to have worked in radio and I understand it. So, this show on Hot 97 has Ebro and Rosenberg on there, and they've had a show together, I think maybe upwards of 27 years. They are fairly popular. They do pretty well for themselves. And it's kind of like they keep the South, and Breakfast Club keeps the East Coast. And I don't know of any big radio shows coming out of Texas that are syndicated so widely and appreciated across the United States. Out of the West Coast comes Big Boy's Neighborhood. And all of these people have got, like, they have been the ones for so many years and decades bringing us the news and the music and the emerging culture, right? Now, if you are not part of hip hop culture, there's a reason why I talk about this knowing that you don't know anything about this subset of life, right? It's because the implications are so much wider than just one place. So here's what's happened. People keep talking about this conversation between Charlemagne and academics accusing Charlemagne of having Rock Nation money behind him, and that's why he keeps softballing everything that is talked about when it comes to Jay-Z, when it comes to Rock Nation, and pushing the talking points. And then Charlemagne says, I don't have Rock Nation money. But he is business partners with them. So Rock Nation may not be paying him directly, but he has invested in, I believe, a casino. Uh, Now, I'm sure that if you think about the world that you live in, that there are situations that you have seen that are similar to that, where somebody is essentially in bed with a huge corporation or a huge whatever, and let's look at it this way. If you had money invested in a huge project, that's invested, as in you don't work for the project, but you've put your money in to make this project grow, how are you going to talk about the project? How are you going to talk about the people involved in the project? How are you going to represent anything that kind of sort of touches that project in a meaningful way? Are you going to slam those people? Are you going to slam those organizations? Are you going to talk bad about them when your money is tied up with them? The likelihood is no. Maybe in private circles, you might be honest about the way you feel about things if you don't have positive feelings about it. But on a public level and in public forums, you're not most likely going to destroy something that is tied to your own personal interest. That's just human nature. That's just common sense. Why would you take down something that could then also take you down? The only time people do that whistleblower stuff is when they are at the stage of being some level of whistleblower. Well, yesterday, on a totally different station, totally different place. This is a show that was coming out of Atlanta. I don't know where it comes out of now, but I know that for many decades, this show was coming out of that area. And the host being Ebro and Rosenberg. They've been together for a long time. I'm talking probably upwards of 20 years. Have a lot of influence, have done really well for themselves. I guarantee their money is not just sitting in that radio show. I am sure that they have branched out on some level, right? Well, they start this discussion about Charlemagne being kind of a spokesperson, if you will. And this is my own. They didn't say spokesperson. I'm saying spokesperson for Rock Nation, being real easy on Rock Nation, as Rock Nation is spreading their money everywhere. And again, even if you don't know who Rock Nation is, I guarantee that they have affected your life in one way or another. Rock Nation money is big money, even if you don't know about it. And not knowing about it doesn't invalidate who they are or stop their money from moving. You know what I mean? So here's the thing. These two guys, they get in a conversation. One says, yeah, Charlemagne is doing this. And the other one says, you don't know about this stuff because you don't have any money to invest. The problem is that when these two had this conversation, the way it got heated was the way that, like, it's the kind of fight that shouldn't happen in a public forum, meaning that between two friends and two essentially business partners, this fight was so personal. Rosenberg was making a very valid point that, of course, if your money is tied up with somebody, you're going to go a little bit softer on them. You're not going to be as objective towards them as you would be if you had no skin in the game. You're not an outside observer anymore. You are part of what's going on, and you've probably got to protect your own interests. And Ebro, in his frustration, came back and said, it's because you're broke that you don't understand these things. Two very valid points, right? One, if your money is tied up in something, yeah, you're going to protect that. But Ebro saying it's because you're broke and you don't understand, what he means is you've never had money like that in the game. So you of course you don't support or understand the perspective that you would protect your interest in this way. However, the way they both said these things to each other was like a personal attack. It wasn't making the show great to make the show great. It was two friends really beefing. And honestly, the way that Ebro came back at his friend Rosenberg, at his co-host Rosenberg, you could clearly hear Ebro has money tied up in the Rock Nation game. He's invested somewhere in there. Somehow that Rock Nation money is coming back to Ebro. He protected that a little too strongly at the expense of making his friend look like a fool, of making his friend look like you ain't got shit, you ain't never had shit, you're never gonna have shit. You see what I'm saying? And his friend, you could feel that this attack was so personal that his friend was like, Why are you even saying that to me? Why would you come at me in this direction? Why has this not been like a discussion anymore and now it's turned into a personal attack? Basically, if you only heard that fight, you would think this show is over. From here on out, it's going to go downhill. These two are not going to recover. Well, everybody's making these reels, not everybody. A lot of people are making these reels where they sit down in front of the camera and they say, it's basically got the same music track behind it, and this is their chance to make their Netflix documentary, and then they put the subject in it. Rosenberg, I mean, it hasn't even been 24 hours. Rosenberg has already made that video to say, how did he, and he's trying to turn it into a joke because I think he recognized that they absolutely just destroyed their friendship. The two of them having that discussion and it going to verbal blows like that, they have destroyed their friendship. And when you hate somebody, it is really hard to show up every single day and work with them. And even if you put those hard feelings aside, there is still a foundation of like, I don't mess with you anymore. I just don't. You're just not the one for me. And to be honest, this has wider implications in the world because all of the discussion, including my own, that's going to come out about the Ebro Rosenberg situation. Again, even if you don't know them, it's relevant because people are going to start fighting, and it's not even going to be about Rosenberg, Ebro. Ebro has been a grumpy human from the jump. There are times he's just mad to be mad. He reminds me of a lot of people I know, and none that I will call out here. But there's a person I know, if they can be mad about something, they will be mad about it. That's Ebro. Rosenberg, I don't know as well. I don't think his fame has gone quite as wide as Ebro's. But regardless, nobody is going to be beefing over what Rosenberg and Ebro said. That was their problem. But they are probably going to disintegrate their relationship. You can kind of feel it. And if they hold it, it's going to disintegrate on its own because they have absolutely rocked the foundation of that friendship. People I've already talked about, Charlemagne and academics. I don't even think that they're real friends. I don't think they're friends in real life because I think a lot of people have that feeling towards academics that I do, which is that he's a simp, and it's not that great. It's not that great to be a simp. But what is happening in the world that I'm observing is that Rock Nation is shaking the foundation of so many things. And people are going to be arguing about Rock Nation, about Jay-Z, and they're going to be passionate about it. Now think in your world and in your life, have people ever fought and argued over ideas and about other people's money, very specifically, other people's money that somehow they believed they participated in? As in, you have a lot of money, I don't have a lot of money, but I'm fighting to save your money. Because somewhere in my mind, I'm thinking, at one point, this might be my money, and I want to fight the good fight now. So when I have money, the fight is already won. And I get to keep all the stuff that I get, even though I don't have it. You ever seen that happen? You ever seen people fight for somebody else to keep their money because they think it allows them to keep their own money, but the two things don't even go together? I always think it's the most interesting divide that we can really participate in, is when you're arguing for somebody else's success, somebody else who's already successful, somebody who already has it all and is taking more, but you want to defend them because somehow you've associated yourself with their money. But if you were really to take a step back and look at your own situation, you ain't got any of what they got. I always, I don't always, I just say I always, but I think about those situations and what is the wider implication? There's many, and they'll come to light as the days go on. But It's just it's one of those things where if it's happening here, it's happening there, and it's happening there, and the scenarios might not be identical, but the underlying theme will be. I guess the real question is, while you're getting ready this morning, are you fighting for somebody else's money that you don't have because you believe that at some point it'll be yours? I don't know that that's a bad thing, but I don't know if that makes a lot of sense either. I'm going to think on it. I'll see you tomorrow.